5 years and doing everything properly. And in some cases, things are unduly difficult. So I see that, the fact that, you're going through the process, I'd recommend it. But I see that in some aspects, because the immigration system is broken, fraudulent documents are every place. I'd like to go to a biometric system. I think a biometric system would stop a lot of the fraud. I'd also like to see the fact that, as I've said before, Europe happens to have a model that individuals that work in Europe, say in France, they have to register and with the authorities to be able to get a permit to work. One second.
My question about the multicultural activity, should we go forward or just stop?
Well, I think I would go forward. My thought is I would go forward. All right? Well, hopefully that answers your question. But again, I like the European model for immigration.
Hi, Mr. Moffatt. My name is Natasha Williams, and I live in Palmdale, California.
I know who you are.
I would like to know which ways would you reform DCFS? And I'm asking that question because on February 16th, I was in the hospital. I had custody of 4 nieces and nephews in which I've had for 5 years. Because I had a heart attack, social services took the children from me. And they're not letting our family see the children, and they place them in foster care for some strange reason. So in which ways we have a big problem in the city of Palmdale. They're removing children out of positive environments, and the ones that's getting neglected, abused, they're leaving them in those environments. So they're doing things pretty backwards. So in which ways would you reform DCFS?
Amazingly on point compared to a case that I was just working. I had a case called Adkins v. Adkins in the Supreme Court. And darn it, Scalia had the unfortunate situation of dying. Unfortunately, he inconvenienced me. I had his vote for a writ of certiorari. I was advised I had his vote. Unfortunately, when my case went forward, I only had 3 votes, so my case, Adkins v. Adkins, didn't move forward. In that situation, Adkins would have actually modified dependency and would also modify family law nationwide. Now, one of the things that I've seen is that Bill Clinton happened to put in an incentive to take kids from parents. And in that situation, it was a law that's problematic in how it's implemented. It created an incentive to remove kids from good homes. And we also have a situation that Star and I were involved in that not Steve Knight, but his father, Pete Knight, actually helped us out with. It was an assembly bill, maybe 15 years ago, where we were trying to work with social workers where there were actually some level of accountability. Now I have to step back, and in fact, that Lou Vince adopted 2 kids out of DCFS. We have to congratulate him for bringing good opportunity there, but I'd like to really remodify DCFS as it stands. Really unhappy with it. And again, I took a case to the Supreme Court trying to do exactly that. I do that
Time's up.
thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Sandra Rydell.
Okay.
And being a senior citizen and seeing other seniors, I wonder why, in all the campaigns I've heard, no one speaks about the senior citizen. None of you have, none of the ones running for president have. It seems to me that it's kind of a neglected part of our society, and I am concerned. I still work. I'm 75 and I still work. But I have to. Yeah, you have to work. I get Social Security, but you have to work. But I know a lot of people that don't get to work and are on fixed incomes, and yet every year their cost of living still goes up. And they're not getting increases in their Social Security. And then when I hear things that people want to take away Social Security or reduce our Social Security, it boggles my mind. It's almost like the reverse of a Robin Hood. What are your plans for Social Security? Being a Republican.
Okay. Did you hear my opponent, Steve, talk about Social Security recently. Did you see that he couldn't have exploded a hand grenade worse on himself? I mean, the fact that he looked at Social Security as a mistake. I happen to look at it as an entitlement. And I look at it as something that you put in. My father-in-law, who also works, I think he's in mid-70s as well. And the problem that we have right now is that we've got some individuals that want to privatize Social Security. And the problem with privatizing it, even though there's some economic studies that say, hey, the market will do better, the problem is we have individuals in the federal government that have been outright thieves with our money. One of the things that I'm really steadfast for is the theft that happened with Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. I don't know if you're familiar, but we had this crisis in 2008, and there was the two entities that are worth $5 trillion apiece. They had enough cash flow to pay for themselves, and with the cash on hand for 3 years. What our president at the time did is he basically nationalized those, and then saying, hey, there was a problem, and then what did he do? He went and bailed out his friends, Goldman Sachs. So I'm against privatizing it until we hold people accountable, like the past president and current Obama that did a
Time's up,
third.
Mr. Moffatt.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Hi, my name's Elaine Dallas, and kind of going along with the Social Security.
Sure.
There's a real problem with Social Security. First of all, it's our money, it comes out of our checks,
I agree.
which was stolen by the federal government. Thank you very much. But anyway, people who are on fixed incomes, no one seems to account for that. The taxes keep going up, their Social Security doesn't go up, or anything. For example, we have a measure here, Measure E, which is a tax. How do you feel about the tax? People in mobile homes who have been ripped off, which is a whole nother level, but who have been ripped off entirely by the city local government, by the state, and now they're being asked to pay another tax. They live on a fixed income. Some of the people are losing medication. Some of the families cannot go out because the city screwed the people in mobile homes, and then they blame the state. What can you do? And I thought Republicans weren't supposed to raise taxes.
There is the interesting part between my opponent and myself. Now, one of the things that I happen to be backing is Mr. Petzvold's challenge for Measure E. One over there waving his hand. Now, one of the things that I see is the College of the Canyons recently had certificate of deposit, basically bonds, but they issued themselves, like 33 million in the last 10 years. They didn't ask for anybody's approval, and yet you're paying tax on it. You know, you believe right now that you actually have a vote on the 7th regarding this Measure E. I'm here to tell you, right here in my hand, these Measure E bills, they're already trading. They started trading today. It is $94 million traded today on the bonds that have not yet been approved. The problem that I have is that for those of us that have property tax, Star and I pay in excess of $12,000 property tax per year. And it keeps increasing. And in our area, similar to your area, we have, when you start looking at who's accountable, we have money going to cemeteries that haven't received money in a decade. There's no accountability. I personally want to look at things from a federal standpoint. I want to look at things from an SEC standpoint. When you have a bond that's already trading that hasn't been approved, there's a problem. And I'm against Measure E.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, my name is Rick Eaton. I'm from Canyon Country. My question is, you mentioned the Bureau of Land Management. I want to find out, is your issues with BLM in relation to CMEX, or do you have other issues with some of the things that go on in other places around the country?
Both. I have this, the interesting thing with CMEX is the federal government, through BLM, dishonored an agreement. The federal government's already ruled that CMEX was gonna be exempt from federal rules, state rules, and then all of a sudden the BLM comes in and disavows the contract. It's just a matter of time before BLM loses that argument. One of the things that I wanna do with as it relates to CMEX is it's the power that comes through that in the court cases comes from NAFTA. I want to reverse NAFTA, and I'm also against Trans-Pacific Partnership. Now, if NAFTA didn't exist, then the rules or the base for CMEX would go away. Now, the next thing I want to look at is BLM has been having major controls. It's been taking excessive properties in Florida. It's been doing it in Texas. I've got a client that has a gold mine in Arizona. He has a gold claim that has existed since the mid-1800s because of the new rules of BLM. He's a gold miner. He can dig during the day, but by sunlight or sundown, everything that he dug up, he has to replace. It makes no sense for a gold claim that's been around for over 140, 50 years. It makes no sense. So BLM right now has been an overreach of the federal government, and I think that the strong Republican getting in there, strong Republican Congress will reverse that.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Annie.
Okay.
How would you propose that we address homelessness in the 25th district?
I'm glad you asked that question. My wife and I have done that since 1998. We actually created a nonprofit, only it was really a Jeff and Star Moffatt, $500,000, let's be charitable type thing. And we used to give housing, training to recovering drug addicts, people coming out of prison, and those getting out of prostitution. And one of the things that I see that started happening is back when we were involved with that, you started having some self-dealing that was going on with contracts. Star and I shut that down. Matter of fact, we ended up literally overhauling a couple major nonprofits, and we helped also to change the prison system, and we're given kudos for that. But one of the things that, you know, at least it's homelessness. Star and I are those that are experienced. We dealt with this. It's a problem, and I think there needs to be a government aspect to it. I think there needs to be a private aspect to it. I think there needs to be a charitable aspect to it. There are different individuals. A client of mine, he used to be out on the streets. I talked to him the other day, and he said once he got clean, he was able to get his life back together, and now he has a thriving business that he employs 10 people. And now the guy happens to be a millionaire. And so homelessness doesn't mean that you're stupid or lazy. Sometimes it means you made some mistakes and you need some opportunity. That's one of the things I'd like to do to help.
Thank you.
In the Republican majority in the House or the Senate, what is your feeling about the national debt, and what do you feel that the Republicans should do about it going into the next Congress?
Well, I see that we have several countries that have stolen from us blatantly. One being China. It was just documented that they ripped off some steel corporations' technology. In that situation, I would like to see, and this was a Chinese national company that did this, I'd like to see tariffs put on China, at least as it relates to that entity. You know, I'm all for pure competition, but when you have a national entity that is involved in economic theft, and we have yet been afraid to hold some of those entities accountable, I think that a tariff might suit that purpose and use it to pay down some of the debt. One of the problems that we also have in the current economics is that when we're doing well, for some reason, we don't go ahead and pay down our debt. And I think that needs to change. I think that in some aspects, we have a really misplaced idea of budgets. I'd like to change the way the budgets are handled. I'd like to have a zero-based budget. I'm pro-military, but when we're dealing with, because of the way the budgets are set up, we're always doing cost plus. We're building stuff circa World War I and World War II, where we have warehouses of military products that we no longer need.
Real quick.
Would you vote for the Land and Water Conservation Fund? Why or why not?
I think that one of the things that I'm seeing in the community regarding let's put it to you this way. We have a water issue in this area. We have a situation where we have Valencia water, we have Castaic water, and because we have a public company that took over essentially a public entity, or a private company took over a public entity, we no longer have cost controls. We have some different issues in that. I think there needs to be some modification. So in some aspects, I'm looking for maybe some public control or some public commissions to be able to deal with some of the way the water has currently been taken over. Hopefully that answers your question. Any other question? I guess nothing. All right.
Let's give Mr. Moffatt a big hand.